Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to another episode of Community Live Stream. This is Monday, June 4th, 2018. My name is Chuck Tomasi. I am the ServiceNow guy with the cool bow tie, bringing you more goodness from the community on ServiceNow over at community.servicenow.com. I'll get into that in just a bit. This is the show where I bring you not only the answers to many of the questions that I come across in the community, but also bring you the thought process behind that so that you can take that to your organization and use it as you solve your own problems, discover your own issues, and answer your own questions. That's the benefit of this. If you are watching online, thank you very much. I encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you get notified when this show comes up, and you get to, if you're watching live, put your comments in the chat and say, hey, how you doing? Like to know who's watching, where you're from, what's the weather like, all that good stuff. And I will do my best to respond back. If you do have questions about ServiceNow, some part of the platform, one of the products, your personal developer instance, please be sure to put it into the community over at community.servicenow.com. And that way other people get a chance to answer it as well as find it. If you put this in the comments in YouTube, it becomes very difficult to search for. The technology isn't quite there to ask a question and have YouTube point to a specific point in time, locate that comment, the context of what I said. It gets kind of crazy. So many of the questions that I do respond to, I will reply in the comments as well as on the video as well. So you're getting kind of a twofer there. Some people watch this in the background as they work. Some people watch it on the commute to work. Some people watch it on the commute home from work. It's good to see you. Good morning to Steve and Carolyn, two of our regulars. The number of people is watching. We also do this over at Twitch, simulcast this on YouTube and Twitch. So whichever vehicle you wish to consume this with, I have no preference one way or the other. I'm watching comments on both, so if you're over there on Twitch, doesn't look like anybody's there at the moment, but the YouTube community is generally a little more active. It's good to see you again, good to be here, and happy to help where I can. This is totally unscripted. There is no method to this madness. Okay, there's a little method to the madness. What have we missed? We didn't get the developer site. Go over to developer.servicenow.com if you haven't already, and get yourself a free personal developer instance. It looks like this, where you've got free learning paths where you can teach yourself the basics about ServiceNow, build your own application, get into that. We've got documentation on the scripting REST API, the scripting APIs, not just REST, but all of the APIs for the client side and server side. A lot of people new to the platform don't realize that you can do scripting on the server, and that is done through a Rhino engine. Not really something you need to think about too much, but it is the preferred way to interact with the database and get information to and from your applications, to and from your, whether it's ITSM applications or custom-built applications, somewhere in between there. We've also got information about meetups. The share portal is over there. There's links to technical best practices. Tariq, how you doing? Good to see you. Steve is under a parasol on the porch with some ice-cold lemonade today. Must be very nice in Sweden today. And it is swimming weather in the backyard pool here in Phoenix, Arizona. The sun is up. I'm ready to go. Let's see, if we missed anything, we did YouTube, Twitch, community, developer. I think we're ready to go. Let's put that away and go back to community over at community.servicenow.com. We miss Live Coding Happy Hour. Yes, I do too. A Live Coding Happy Hour, for those of you who may not be familiar, is a show that Dave Slusher and Josh Narius started a couple of years ago, where they said, hey, you know what? We want to solve a problem, but we don't know how we're going to solve it. Rather than a polished demo and we practice this thing and then demonstrate it on air, let's go through the process of learning and discovering and trial and error on air. And that way you get to see what that thought process, very similar to this show in a way, that you get inside their heads and say, well, that didn't work. What can we try? Let's go over here and try this. And, this might work better than that. And when you get 2 or 3 people on the show and discussing options, there's some very interesting dialogue that happens, very similar to what you would get if if some of the developers got together in your organization or your developer community and started tackling one of these problems. And you get to discover new technologies, new capabilities, and possibly new techniques to solve these problems and implement them at your organization. Whether it's OAuth or an integration with YouTube or Amazon Dash buttons or just ways to connect information on the platform. It's a very cool way to do that. We normally do those on Friday afternoons, Eastern time. And just due to commitments and workload and knowledge, it hasn't happened in the last few weeks. So hopefully we'll get one this Friday. I asked Dave on Thursday, I said, hey, are we doing a live coding happy hour? And he said, not this week. He's part of the reason is Josh and Arias went to another group, and Josh and Dave used to do the workload balance, and now there's no Josh. So they're looking at bringing somebody in to help backfill that workload. But until then, Dave is just underwater with workload right now. I'm trying my best to offload where I can, but it's still a busy time for him right now. So hopefully we'll get that back soon. Let's go to the community. I like to start with the unreplied questions, see what's new, see what's happened. We've got orphan empty relations in IT service management. Could be CMDB, don't know. Let's take a look at that. Pop that up, bring up the new tab. And it says there are a few relations in CMDB rel CI that either don't have a parent or a child or both. Most of them are typed depends on used by. These relations are getting created from the script include application dependency mapping. What causes them to create such relations in some scenarios? What can I conclude from or how do I debug them? Tried running discovery on relations with parent and no child. Well, it makes sense to me that you would have some that have no parent. If a CI has no parent, it means it is at the top of the business service, i.e., a web server may have no parent, but depend on a database server. That database server will have a parent and may have a child. If the CI, has a child, has a parent and no child, it indicates that let me move that up just a little bit so I can see it, and maybe you can see it a little bit better. The CI is I'm going to use this term loosely, terminating node at the end of the business service. Let's see what I have to say about that. All right, one reply down. There we go. Try not the light green bow tie. It doesn't seem to be interfering with the green screen. I had a light blue one on a little while ago, and you could see through it. That's not good. That's not good. Creation of multiple tasks depending of a variable. Sounds like a workflow question. Possibly script. I have a request to create a catalog item with some basic fields, including a single line text field for the number of clients impacted, number between 1 and 9 clients, and depending a single line text with the client's number, client 1, client 2, etc. I need to create a workflow whose first task is to send a letter to the client. As the number of affected customers can vary from 1 to 9, this task should be duplicated as many times as there are customers concerned in order to ensure individual attention to each letter. Creation of 5 identical tasks if the number of customers is 5. So I would like to have one request item that would take as many tasks as there are customers informed in form. Informed in form, love that. Before I get lost in trying to figure this one out myself, I would like to ask what is the best way to proceed in doing this? I would first change the... using a string field is going to introduce some variants and allow users to put in any string, e.g. hello, instead of a number. Is there the option to change this to a number/integer field to do some data validation? Integer, good spelling there, Charles. To do some data validation on the form before they have a chance to submit bogus information. The end result, if you can get your hands on the integer, is to write some script to loop through n number of times, where n is the number they gave you in that field. More details on field names, tables, etc. are appreciated to give you a more accurate answer, a more specific answer in the form of a script. A script. The general format is going to look something like this. And I'm going to, it's really hard to type and talk at the same time. I'm amazed I get anything done at all. I'm going to do it over here in this text editor because it's a little easier to do. But say var num equals current dot variables dot count. And you know what? I'm going to change that even more and say parse int 10. Okay. Get the numeric value of your string. And then say var I equals, sorry, I almost slipped into another programming language for a sec. I less than, oops, I already did the condition part. It's Monday. Scripting is harder on Monday, apparently. Just typing in general. You missed the red tie, Steve. I understand. I may get a red tie, I'm not sure. It doesn't quite go with the color scheme of the new branding, but I might get one just for an occasion. It won't have the power logo on it. I still have that tie. And then say gs.event queue, my event here, current, give it some events, trigger a notification via event. And you could say maybe I or customer or something, or why is my, wow, my editor won't let me get rid of the highlighting. That was bizarre. Copy that back to the community where I can use these little curly brackets to insert a code snippet in JavaScript. I haven't done this in a while. Let's see if anything has changed here. I do need to make that smaller so I can see the OK button. And it's still nice and colored, but when I hit reply, the coloring goes away. Sad face. Okay, there's a reply. I haven't done any coding on here in a while. Did that ring? No. Audio's being a little crazy today on the sound effects. Not sure what's going on. May not have a theme at the end of this. It was a struggle to get the theme at the beginning. Help with UI action for related table. Before I do that, let's refresh that list real quickly. Counter issue. Hope they're not talking like the granite counters in your kitchen. We have faced issues with counter working to increment number every time we create a new record. It causes duplicate records, which is unwanted. Kindly let us know the reason to fix it. How are you creating these records? Normally this is handled automatically with the auto number feature on a tables field. Check out number maintenance. If you are importing records from another system, you could end up with duplicates. The ones generated on the active system and the ones generated from the imported system. Here, no, let's change that. That's source system and target system. A little more standard verbose or standard terminology. Let's look at number management, maintenance. I can't remember. Numbers and number groups. Number groups allow you to group notify numbers. Nope. Create a number group, enforcing unique numbering. Although duplicate numbers are rare, numbering does not enforce uniqueness by default. Check that, enforcing unique numbering. Enforcing, where'd my cursor just go? Enforcing unique numbering. I like that article better than the other one. And one of my latest favoritist features, Command K. To bring up that link dialog box. There we are. Still nothing. Interesting. All right, my personal developer instance is just sitting there waiting to do something. You can get yourself a free personal developer instance, as I mentioned before, from developer.servicenow.com. There's the link if you want to go over there and try it out. If you don't use it for a while, it will get reclaimed. These are temporary, but if you keep using it, it will be yours for as long as you keep using it. You just have to wake it up every few days and say, hey, I'm still here. Let's see, what have we got? Help with UI action for related table. Let's see what that says. From Wendy Peterson. Hi, I need help with the UI action I created for a parent table. I created two tables. One is extending task table, and it's the BOS request table. Then I created another table extending from that, since most of the fields will be the same. Only time they create a task is for one specific request, but since I need to have a workflow come from it, I need that second table after approvals. The problem is, when I do a UI action, since it's extending the parent table, I can't get the UI action only to show on the request table. I tried, I think I know what she's up to. Current instance state and parent under request equals true. If I understand right, I also tried this condition sys class name equals x loading. No, I did this the other day. What was it, to figure out if that was actually they wanted it on the parent, because if you ask for the here, I'm going to try this again. Go to developer. The API is in Glide Record. I'm going to look up the server API, and Glide Record is the primary way we interact with the database. And there is a get table name, but we don't want get table name directly because it won't tell us the exact, oh, maybe it will. So if we've got, I thought there was something else. It was, oh, I was thinking of the reference table name. Never mind. My suggestion is you don't do sys class name, but you do get table name. I seem to have gotten lost in the description somewhere. There are no specific, let's see, she's got table name here is X underscore LAO something something something. And she said LAO building of building office services. I'm not sure if that's the parent table or the child table or the got lost in the details somewhere. Specific table names mentioned. So I'll go off the screenshot. In the condition, if you only, let's see, I'm going to use your table structure like this. I'm going to assume. Adapt where applicable, or correct me. All right, first, task is table task. Request is table request. Building of building officers. I love that table name, by the way. I think there was an X under there because it is scoped. Request and BOS table equals. So if you want the UI action to, if the UI action is defined on, what I understand is you've defined the UI action on the request table and don't want it to appear on the BOS table, then add this to your condition. Current dot get table name equals your BOS table. Because if you look at my personal developer instance and go to scripts background, let's get an incident record. This will be real quick. Var incident equals new glide record. I don't really care what I'm getting. Incident, make that a little bigger for you. I just want an incident record because incident is extended from task, and this is kind of what I'm getting at. Incident dot query, incident dot next, and say gs dot info, incident dot get table name. Should say incident, and I'm going to run that in the global scope. It does say incident. However, if I say, go get me a task, I know it's still calling the variable incident. It will say task. Should have put that code in one of those little code snippets. It would have been helpful. Anybody else respond to that? Nope. Maybe the ding will wake up. Did that just ding like 10 seconds too late? Interesting. Hang on. One. Wow. There is a significant delay somewhere. And I'm not going to freak out about the music or the sound effects yet. Let's do a quick refresh on this and see what we get. Also keeping an eye on my inbox, see if anything lights up there. How to remove request approval UI action from standard change request. Well, where would you like it to remain? From Kevin Eldridge. Kevin's a smart guy. I'm a little intimidated by this one. He doesn't ask silly questions. I've been asked to change ServiceNow's verbiage from standard to routine for change management. I followed the guide at add a new change request type. In doing so, it appears that there are now 2 request approval UI actions at the top of routine change request. I have looked at the code for UI actions, but I'm missing something. Is there anything someone can do to assist me with this? Request approval, action name, that's the UI action, and it says, that's interesting that it does an eval JSON. Request approval emergency. This is normal change request, and he's getting back. Where in here does it look for normal change, and where in here does it look for emergency? Define current update. Wouldn't you think it'd be in the conditions? Yeah. Hi, Kevin. I would think to look in the condition rather than the script to determine when, why a UI action is appearing on the screen. Any insight there? So again, getting back, this is related very closely to the other one. The way the UI actions determine when should it be on the screen. If I go to incident, open, and open one of these records, we'll take the top one there. These come up like resolve. Why is resolve on the screen here and now, whereas it may not be for another incident type? Go down to the bottom of the form before the related lists. You will see these are replicated. Update, resolve, delete, update, resolve, delete. And if you right-click on one of these down here, either that one or a link, you can edit that UI action and see what makes up that UI action, even if you don't want to modify it. I'm going to switch to global. Apparently I was doing something with my demo last week. Being careful not to change anything in here right now. The reason it shows up is defined partly is this the right table? Yes, this is the incident table. Good. Okay. How would you like to represent that? As a button, as a link, as a menu? I want it as a button. So that's what that specifies. Is this a new record or am I updating an existing record? If you don't check insert, when you create a new incident on that form, it won't show up. In some cases, that makes sense. You want to leave this blank because you don't want say a button or a link to say request approval if you're filling out the form for the first time. There's nothing to approve yet. It doesn't make sense. So when you want that to appear is very important on insert and update. The next part of it is when should it appear is derived by the condition. And that is so long I can't read it. I don't recommend doing that. But let's take it apart. There are multiple pieces of this. And it says if the current incident is closed, so it's using, instead of numbers like 7, it's using this defined state, incident state.close, to determine that. So it reads a little easier. And it's not equal to resolved. So it's not closed and it's not resolved. That means it's somewhat active somewhere. And the person at the console who's running this, who opened the form, has ITIL role or ITIL admin, or this is the user themselves. So you have to either be an ITIL person or you have to be the person who opened this request on the caller field. Those people will see this button if it's in an active state. Now, why didn't we just say current.active? Because current.active includes resolved. We're going to filter based on the state. If it happens to that somebody already clicked resolved, it moves it to the resolved state. That's probably what the script does down here. It says, yep, okay, it's now resolved. I'm going to update that. Sure enough, it sets the state to 6, which is resolved, and then updates the issue. The button will not appear in the resolved state for anyone. That's the point. So that's what the condition does. This script down here really isn't saying when should this appear. It's just saying, what do you want me to do once somebody clicks it? So back to the community home, a little explanation about that. How to close all incidents at a time is from the stream chat. If you're saying all incidents, like all, whether you've got 10 or 10 million and you want to close them all, that could be as simple as a 3 or 4 line script in script background. If you want to be a little more specific about that, I'd be happy to try and answer that. Again, my recommendation is first post these into the community because other people may want to know this as well. Do you want to delete the records? Do you want to just close them? Do you want to filter that down to a specific category or just the active ones? What do you want to do with that? How to remove request approval UI action. Did I or did I not just do that? I didn't. I got to refresh this. How to get the value of the tag available in XML response of SOAP integration. Value of the tag available in XML response. This is going to be XML parsing. It's funny that once I went to REST, I sort of gave up on SOAP. It's not that prevalent anymore. I know there's still a lot of legacy systems that do that. I have to create a SOAP message and also a business rule for the same. In the response received after the test run, I have tags status failure, description validation. How do I get the value of status tag in a business rule? So here's your response, s.execute, response get body, its status code, XML document response, get node status, but the status value return is null. What is what is this www part? Oh, they're just logging something. Not sure what we're trying to do here. I'm going to see if I can find an example for them. What was that method they were calling? The class is XML document. Let's do a search in the API. Again, developer.servicenow has all of this. XML document. Really? Is it a document 2? Aha, ha, 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 we updated this. Creates an XML2 document. Let's see if there's some examples in here. Create elements. Get document element. There we go. I would stick with this. I would suggest using the XML document 2 class. Then your call to get document element, was it? I can't remember these things after 3 pages later. Get document element can parse out that information. Add some links, one for you, one for you. Wrong page. That's not even a link. Why is that not a link? Fine. No link for you. Here, I'll even copy in the example that they gave. That'll be fun. Code, JavaScript, paste. Make it little so I see the OK button. If that box was just a teeny bit smaller. There we go. Oh, response time on the desk bell is getting a little quicker. It's not like I'm doing a call across the internet to get that sound effect. Fun, fun, fun. My goodness, it's 20 minutes of the hour already. Time is just flying by. I want to remind you that we are doing, what's today, the 4th? Wednesday is the 6th. And we are doing Tech Now episode 53, which is all about the guided tour designer. If you want to go there, there's a link right on the screen, bit.ly link TN53reg. And that will take you to the registration page if you want to sign up for that. Gives you all this wonderful information about the guided tour designer, what we're going to cover. If you're not familiar with the guided tour designer, real quick overview, let me get back to my personal developer instance, I think there's one that's available out of the box. Maybe as a demo, maybe I loaded it. Nope, not that cog. The question mark icon, and it will show you any guided tours that are down here. Guided tour designer is a way for you to put together guided tour. Let's see how many are out here. Very easy way to do a click-through instructional. You've probably seen these on other web apps. For example, YouTube has a new UI for their Creator Studio. I don't really care for it at this point. It's missing a few features that I use in this classic UI. That aside, when I turned it on, it said, oh, by the way, if you click this button, it will do this. And if you click that button, you do that. And it walks you around the form and helps you understand what the features are, what you can do, what the options are. Let me look at which guided tours we have. I do have one on incident. It is active. Incident management forum layout. But it did not come up. It's supposed to come up. Let's look at problem. Open problem. Go to problem.list. I may need to activate something. Not trying to do the world's greatest demo here, but if I click the question mark icon, here is take a tour. And it then walks me around the form and says, fill in a short description. Okay, so if I'm new to this, I can go here. And we also have, I believe it was starting in Jakarta, or maybe it was Kingston, an auto launch feature to say, start this if the person has not taken this tour before, or start this every time the person goes into the form. So this only has one instruction. I can see here one of one right there in the top of my little dialogue. I fill in the short description, I say I'm done, and it goes, hooray, you've taken the tour. That was about as simple as that one gets. So guided tour designer is a way for you to provide documentation, a way to instruct people, reduce the amount of annotations that you have. Another way to do that, of course, would be to put annotations on the form. This one doesn't seem to have any. Oh, there's one. List concerns separately and clarify. If I turn those off, it allows the expert users to go along without so much clutter on the screen. So different ways you could do that. But guided tour designer steps people through in a step-by-step, very instructional fashion. You could go over here onto the sidebar menu. You could go into the form. They're available for standard forms and lists. We are looking at extending that to Service Portal. It is on the roadmap, but I don't know what release that's coming out in. So sign up at bit.ly/TN53reg if you want to be part of that. It will be in 2 days and an hour and about 15 minutes. We'll get started on that. Steve says, your question in the community, and I'll bet you'll get an answer to it in 5 to 10 minutes. You're right. A fixer or background script. Be interested to find out what exactly you're trying to do based on, normally when deleting is not a good thing. I don't recommend it in the system. The rare exceptions are, I want to delete demo data. If you need to refresh your test data from prod, you can do that with a clone and get all new prod data into test or dev or any other instance that you can clone to. But deleting is generally not a good operation. There's several ways you can delete all records. One is to go to the table definition. There's a button right there that says delete all records. That will take some time. You could do it with a script like Steve and I suggested. You could do it with, I think, from the dictionary as well. I'm not sure about that one. But there's several ways you can do this. But again, be very certain what you want to do, because once you delete those records, especially through script, they're gone. You're not going to get them back. Good morning, Sam. Good to talk to you. And as Steve said, stop business rules as well. If you're doing this through a script, use the set workflow false parameter to the glide record query, and it will turn off processing, because there may be a business rule that's triggered whenever you run an operation, even from script, that says, hey, update this record, delete that record, insert a new record. It's triggering business rules. That's what they do. They're database triggers that get fired when you run an operation. So if you turn those off and say, look, I'm going to do this database query, I'm going to do these database operations, but don't run any business rules or workflows, because you may unintentionally send out thousands of emails and people are going, why did I get this? So again, delete, be sure, I would even go up and say, hey, to your manager, is it okay if I delete these records, and make them understand what the implications are. Don't do this in a vacuum. Make sure that other people understand what's going on. Better way to be my preference is anytime there's an active field, deactivate them. Just go through and do the same operation, but instead of deleting them, update them so that active is false. And that way they won't show up in, say, queries. Every time I make a new table, okay, most times I make new tables in an application or an existing application, whether it's in global or a scope, I will add an active field so that I can use them in reference qualifiers and take the inactive records out of my lookups. So use active first if you can. Delete is a last resort. I know I'm harping on this, but I really don't want to see somebody run a query and go, oh my gosh, all my records disappeared. What happened? Well, that's a bad thing, and you're likely not to get them back. Especially in production, it would take a restore of that instance, and that's going to take some time from support to get the backup going. You don't want to go there. Just don't. So I think the only time I delete records on my own is when I am building an application and I've modified the data model so much that the old data is irrelevant, and only in dev. I don't do this a lot of times I will do an export to XML first. Just say, save these just in case I screw this up, I'll have a backup of XML. Got to make sure that it's not hundreds of thousands of millions of records. That's a good way to do it. All right, back to the community. I had one other link in there. This is a reply to something last week on table rotation. I'm going to bring up the response. It's in this doc, but it's also in the, I pasted it into here. I got this from a colleague of mine. They were saying, hey, got a question about table rotation. Table rotation is a way of taking log files that grow and grow and grow. The ECCQ was the one they had in particular in question here. It said, help me understand how this goes. I've got it configured so that it says 7 rotations. This is the out-of-box configuration. 7 rotations, and rotate daily. So theoretically, you would expect on your instance to see, I'm going to go to system definition table rotations. And there's the ECCQ. This is used for your mid server to communicate back and forth. And after a while, you just say, you know what? I don't care what the mid server said last Thursday. It's kind of ancient history. I usually only care about if there's a problem, are we communicating effectively? So by default, it's configured to rotate once a day for 7 days. And down here is the rotation schedule. And I can see there's a whole bunch that are offline. I've got 8 records. One is current, and the others are archives. But you notice there's some gaps in here. This one goes 6.2 to 6.3. This one goes 6.3 to 6.4. It's probably not going to be as obvious here today. 5.30 to 5.31, 5.31 to 6.1. The one we saw last week was from 6.2 to 6. It was in the future, and it spanned about 3 days. It's very weird. Now this one is looking a little more normal, aside from the fact that They're out of order. Here, 6.4 to 6.5. That's today. 6.5 to 6.6. It's somehow predicting this in the future. There is one that's online, and that was from, or one that's offline. That's from last week. They said, what's up with this schedule table? I don't understand it. So what my colleague said is, I will find that for you. I don't have an answer for why the duration of some of the table rotation schedules are longer than the duration specified in the table rotation group. Why, this one didn't show it today, but last week, even my personal developer instance had some weird 3-day durations. Don't know. You'll need to get in touch with support or persistence PM engineering to answer that one. I can't answer the other part. When the rotation runs, the standard algorithm is this. Get the eldest rotation schedule. It's the one that's currently offline. Set up valid timestamps for the next period. Truncate the data in the table and set offline to false. So now we've got this table that's sort of put aside and almost renamed to another table, not quite. Get the now eldest table rotation schedule. Originally, this was the eldest online, and set it offline to true. And then clear down any attachment data. So the question that they observed is having several rotations does not mean data will be available through the instance for 7 times the duration. There will always be at least one table offline, and there will likely be set up for the next window. So it seems likely that we could say there will be typically n-2 rotations worth of data available in the instance. There may be edge cases that I'm unaware of where that would mean there would be more or less data retained. So you may want to double check with persistence folks before committing to anything. The docs are fairly clear that customers should contact support for guidance on changing these settings. So it might be worthwhile providing a high-level explanation, then direct them a high. So if this didn't make sense, which kind of doesn't in my opinion, I'd go after support and ask for more detailed information. But the table rotation is a handy feature. Generally, you don't have to mess with it. If you've made an application or you're making lots and lots of log entries and your table is getting very large, you really don't care about the data that's older, you can get rid of it that way. There's archiving as well, which I won't get into today, but you might want to look at that as well if you need some method for getting that information off of your system. Good old herbal tea keeps the vocal cords lubricated during the show. Incident to knowledge creation was created by incident to knowledge business rule, in that how the KB articles put into a specific category. That should really go in ITSM. Make sure if you are posting in the community that you put it in the right forum. If you've got an ITSM like incident and knowledge or incident problem question or change request, that it goes into the right place. If it's script related or something a little more deeper than application specific, developer community, there's also topics within each forum. For example, if you have a service portal question, put it in the developer community, but use the topic service portal, and that way it will be grouped with all the other service portal questions. So if somebody's looking for general service portal information, they can find it that way. If you put something in the wrong forum or the wrong topic, it's going to be difficult for people to find if they're searching categorically. It will be difficult for people to answer if they're subscribed, which you can do. You can subscribe to an entire forum and say, hey, let me know every time a new question comes in on the developer community. Well, if people are putting things into the platform area, you're probably not going to see that. So the poster, the person who posts the question benefits from using the right forum and category, or topic, excuse me. And the people who are answering benefit from getting the information that they can help with more effectively. Good morning, Crash in the Ground. Comment from Twitch. You know, I think that might be the first or second comment from Twitch we've gotten in months. I thought of this and tried to add a condition to restrict it to only for the. However, this did not have any effect when I added condition to the condition list. I'm not sure. I may have seen that. Might have been talking about something a while ago. I don't know what context that's in, if that was one of the UI actions. Crash on the Ground might be Kevin Eldridge. I'm guessing. Or it might be the person who we were talking about, the get table name method. We're almost at the top of the hour, but I want to see if I can get in one, maybe two more of these. Linked CI is not showing three-level relationship and dependency viewer. I'm not going to go into the CMDB right now. Dynamic date population. Good morning to everybody who's joined us. We are just about to wrap up, but you are free to come back and watch this anytime. Listen to it in the background. Dynamic date population in set field values in the automated test framework. Dynamic data in ATF. I'm going to take a look. Can't say I can answer that. I don't think it's ITSM related, but we'll find out. Hi there. We are currently building some reusable test cases using ATF. We have several test scenarios related to change management where planned start date, end date should be dynamically populated to future date. Typically, the date and time should be anything between third Sunday, between 9 and 12. Is there any JavaScript available to meet that requirement? I want to populate the third Sunday, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time in the highlighted area. You could do a JavaScript and run your own script. Okay. One method would be to write your own script include that has a function to return the date, time of the third Sunday. Sunday. Then call that script include from your field values, similar to what you had above. Example, JavaScript new my date picker third Sunday. The function would return the date time you specify in your script. Example, 2018. I don't know what the third Sunday is. Yesterday was the 3rd, so 10th, 17th, 06, 17, 2100. That shouldn't be too difficult to calculate. What's the third Sunday? Look, no code. DB issue view. Experience with ServiceNow app for self-service. SCCM integration, database views, and choice lists. Finding out the best way to implement a catalog item. Installing mid-server manually. I used to do that before we had an installer. There are actually 3 files to download and copy over. Here's what you need in the below links. This almost sounds like a reply, but I don't see question. Is this a blog? It's definitely possible. Here's a knowledge base article. Download a copy at each mid-server host. Copy the file into the mid-server installation directory path. Wait for a while and the mid-server will attempt to auto-upgrade again. Is this intended to be a reply to someone else's question? Seems kind of odd that it's just sort of hanging out there as an answer to nothing. Could be someone new to the community who doesn't quite understand. Although this community runs very similar to other communities elsewhere online. Is it possible to do a filter on certain fields? Performance analytics and reporting. Let's see what that's about. Is it reporting or is it PA? The ask is measure of number of servers and certain fields where they contain any data. I'm trying to measure on the server table if the following fields are populated: name, location, asset, rack, and rack unit. I have the formula source. Okay, it's into PA. See, here's the topic. Very good. Thank you. Unfortunately, my PA knowledge doesn't go deep enough to help with that one. Come on, I want to... One more. Embedded list limitations. This sounds fun. We have the below requirements on embedded list. Ship to site is an embedded list in the PDT request form. User must select at least one ship to site while submitting the request, otherwise not allow him to submit the request. And user should not be allowed to add ship to sites after request submission. We were unable to control the insert new row option on embedded list based on new or submitted form. We tried to make embedded list mandatory using list control client script. But it is misbehaving sometime during the... Yeah, embedded lists are nice, but they're not going to get you what you want and say, because the thing to realize about embedded lists is these records are not created until you submit the form. Think of them as just a table full of fields. Okay, they will eventually create or update related records. It's like taking a related list from the bottom and putting it into the form, except that you can edit it before the form is submitted. But all of that submission, all that saving, all the updating, all the creating, all the deleting, all that data operation on those related records happens when you submit the form. There is no record created until you submit the form. Let's say I'm creating a new incident and I have related CIs in an embedded list. I don't have that CI relationship built. I don't have those CIs created, or I'm putting users into a group, or questions on a test. Okay, I don't have the question records created. If I'm creating the test, there's nothing to relate them to, which is why you don't see related lists on a record until the record is saved. You first have to fill out the fields, then save, then you get a related list, because there's nothing to relate to. The whole point of relationships is to be able to point to another sysid. Well, the record hasn't been created, so there's no sysid generated. There's no sysid saved. There's no record to point to. It's a bit like saying, here's my address, but I haven't bought the house yet. I don't even know where I'm going to live. I can't give you a business card until I have an address or a phone number or whatever, or until I've been hired by that company. Okay, here's a business card. It says I'm going to work for ServiceNow, maybe someday. I haven't even applied for the job yet. Okay, that's just crazy talk. That's the way the database is working, and that's why embedded lists, they allow you to enter that information, enter those proposed changes, but they won't apply until you hit submit. I know I'm probably beating that point to death, but it's something that you need to realize. And what they want to do is make this mandatory that you have at least one record. That's tough to check when you haven't created the record yet. I would love to have a way to tap into that and say, it's part of the form. Maybe G-form has some method of doing that. That would be great. When you submit, you could do a business rule to check that and say, did you put this in? And put it before query it, before, after. I'm not sure when the related records would say. Would they say before the submit or after? That's a good question. Akash, we are just wrapping up. I apologize. Did you miss something important? Well, depends what you consider important. We've been all over the place with UI actions and embedded lists and SOAP parsing query stuff. So it's I'm about to sign out. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow back here on the community, same time, 1 p.m. UTC. I do that. It's kind of fun to do that in a nerdy fashion just to see who catches on. You can do the math from wherever you are. It is 6 a.m. Pacific time at the moment when people change their clocks back again in the fall. That all changes because I get up at 6 a.m. and do this for you every day out of the goodness of my heart to learn, to grow, to share. And that's what I hope you do. So until tomorrow, have yourself a wonderful day and take care. Be sure that you learn and share and grow. Bye now.